It's Bullseye. I'm Jesse Thorn. First up on our holiday special this year, Micky Dolenz of the Monkees. The Monkees was, of course, a TV show. It aired from 1966 to 1968. A Hollywood version of A Hard Day's Night. 4 lovable goofs in a band playing songs, bumming around Los Angeles, solving mysteries, staying in haunted houses. The band members, Davy Jones, Mike Nesmith, Peter Tork, and Micky Dolenz, weren't a band before the show started. They had to audition for the part, and they were mostly actors. But the Monkees ended up with some legit all-time hits.
Take the last train to Clarksville and I'll meet you at the station. You can be here by 4:30 'cause I've made your reservation. Don't be slow. No. 'Cause I'm leaving in the...
So it's not a real surprise that the band lasted a lot longer than the show. They learned their instruments, they started writing their own songs, the whole 9 yards. And in recent years, even the snobbiest of rock snobs have come to embrace them. They've just recorded their 13th studio album. It's called Christmas Party. There are standards and covers, but it's also got contributions from Rivers Cuomo, Peter Buck, and more. Micky Dolenz is the drummer of the Monkees. He also sings lead vocals on many of their songs. Here's the lead track on the album with Micky on Vox. It's called Unwrap You at Christmas.
I can't wait to unwrap you at Christmas. Dream of nothing more. So dear Santa, when you've read my letter, please drop her at my door. I've been waiting all year now, baby, for the snow and you to return. So I'll hang the mistletoe.
Micky Dolenz, welcome to Bullseye. It's great to have you on the show.
Great to be here. I am such a big fan of you, your show, well, actually all of NPR. I even did a challenge a couple of years ago, big challenge. I'm a huge fan, so nice to be here with you.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for saying that. I have an important question for you. Do you like Christmas? Are you a Christmas person?
Yeah, I am. Born and raised in the Valley of L.A. Not in a huge religious sense, just celebrating the equinox, I guess. Celebrating, winter and all that. But yeah, we always had a big Christmas.
Do you have fond memories of Christmas when you were a kid?
Oh, of course, yeah. Wow.
Was it in the Valley? Was it like the most classic 1950s suburban Christmas imaginable?
Yes, absolutely. Hit the nail on the head. My mom, we had this huge picture window looking out over the backyard. A small house, but nice big picture window. She would do an incredible painting. She was quite a great artist. And she would do some incredible Christmas. Actually, she did it at Easter also and, other moments. And she would do this beautiful, what do you call it? Not graffiti, a big painting, on the window, and then with, poster paint, and then wash it off. Oh, yeah, so we actually had very, very classic American graffiti Christmases and Halloweens and Thanksgivings and, all that stuff, yeah. Very Norman Rockwell.
Did you listen to Christmas music at Christmas time when you were a kid?
Yeah, not necessarily because I wanted to, but that's what they put on, because when you're a kid, your parents run the machine, right?
Well, I mean, some of that stuff is really good, especially at that time. I mean,
it's
you
wonderful.
Can't argue with your Nat King Coles and your, the crooners made some really great Christmas music.
Oh, no. And funny you should mention him, because he is one of my favorite. My influences vocally, musically, were people like Nat King Cole, Johnny Mathis, who I just met, actually. The Sinatra, who I did meet. My influences were all that stuff. And Yeah, I love all that stuff.
What was the best Christmas present you ever got as a kid?
Ooh, wow, great question. I think it probably was a Lionel train set, a big one, the original full-size, mass. I don't know what gauge it was, but and my dad, who was very handy with building stuff, he built me a big platform in the garage where the train set would be set up. So that was probably it, a big Lionel full gauge. I don't know what they're called now, but probably a train set. That was probably it.
Did you get involved in all the mechanics of it? That was like the dawn of computer programming, was people who were really into switching their train sets.
Well, back then, it was still steam powered. We had to actually put real coal in the engine. I've always been very, very into building stuff. I have actually a woodworking furniture company with my daughter called Dolenz and Daughters Fine Furniture, and we make handmade, real high-end kind of custom furniture stuff in a workshop that I have. I've always been into it. My dad was, and over the years I got into it even deeper and deeper, and now I have this business, and I do it for the love of it, and I was going to be an architect. That was my plan.
Really? Because you started acting as a kid. I mean, both your folks were actors, if
Right.
I'm remembering correctly. Was that like the family business, or was that something they were trying to keep you away from?
No, quite the contrary. It was the family business. My dad was an actor, quite successful. My mom was a singer, actress until she started having kids, and then she became a stay-at-home mom, which thank goodness for us, of course. It was wonderful. But my dad did real well, signed to Howard Hughes, of all people, for a while. And I had my first television series when I was 10. It was called Circus Boy. It was on NBC, a national, big network show in the 50s, about 1955, around that time of Rin Tin Tin and Flickin' Fury and all that. And did very well. We ran 2 or 3 seasons until I kind of outgrew the part. And then my parents very wisely, and by the way, they had never pushed me into it. We weren't that kind of Hollywood, Beverly Hills lifestyle, which is fine for some. Eyes and teeth, honey, eyes and teeth. I was brought up in the Valley and in a very rural, suburban environment. I would come home from shooting on the set, and my father would say, "You have to clean the pool." Had horses on the property and, things like that. So he was from Italy, off the boat from Italy, and my mom was from Texas, so they were kind of no-nonsense people and didn't let me get away with, I was going to say but I won't because
you know what a classy operation I'm running here.
So no, they never. I don't ever remember being pushed and any sort of pressure at all.
Did you like it? I mean, was
Yeah.
it something that you really wanted?
No, I followed in my father's footsteps. But how could you not like, being... Well, that series, Circus Boy, was this kid, the spine of it was that it was an orphan kid at the turn of the century who'd been adopted by a clown in a circus. And they took care of him, and he turned out being the one that would also save the day. So I'm living for 3 years. I was living as a 10 or 12-year-old kid in a circus at the turn of the century. So, I mean, how can you not like that? I mean, with animals, I learned to ride an elephant. And in fact, that was the first thing they said to me. They said, okay, well, you're going to have to ride an elephant. And I said, okay, where do I start? It's kind of like when I got the Monkees. They said, well, you're going to be the drummer. I said, okay, where do I start?
We have a clip of Circus Boy, the show in which you starred as a pre-adolescent, or I guess an adolescent. It was, as you mentioned, about a young man whose parents were killed in a trapeze accident. Your character was named Corky,
Right?
adopted by Joey the Clown, played by the late Noah Beery Jr. And in this scene, Corky is the water boy to Bimbo, the baby elephant that we've discussed. And in this clip, Corky is there with Bimbo and Joey.
Bimbo, you gotta brush your teeth after every meal. Because if you ever got a toothache, that'd be too bad.
Hey, Corky, have you seen Jojo anyplace?
Gosh, Uncle Joe, is he loose again?
Oh, you know, he's figured out how to open up his cage all by himself. Half the time I can't tell who's training who. Here I've been trying to make a clown out of that monkey, and he's making a monkey out of me.
Oh, he'll make a good clown, Uncle Joy. Well, I was teaching him how to put on his own makeup, and you're wagging him. Uh-oh.
Let's go.
Oh, you're so cute. I like that. I like your line delivery. I mean, it is the classicest 1956 child on a television show line delivery, like, gee whiz!
Yeah, absolutely right. I ended up doing a lot of voiceovers in the 70s over cartoons, and it was that same kind of thing. You know, I was like always the kid named Skip doing Hanna-Barbera cartoons going, whoa, no, look out, here we go, whoa!
Tell me where you were in your life when you got the part on the Monkees.
I had gone back to high school after Circus Boy. My parents very wisely took me out of the business. I had been offered another show, they told me years later, but I was turning 13, going into puberty, and they sent me to a child psychologist. They said it was an educational counselor, but looking back now, I know it was a shrink. With Rorschach and all that. And I guess, you know, he must have said, you must take this child out of the business immediately. Because, as we've heard, the horror stories, the problems come with child stars after the fact, not during. During during the success, you're glorified. They love you. Everybody loves you, and you're taken care of, cosseted, and then all of a sudden, one day, you're a has-been. You're out of work, and you're just entering puberty, which is tough enough as it is. But now you're not only entering puberty, but you're a has-been entering puberty. And my parents, I don't know, they just wisely, I guess with the aid of this child psychologist, said, no, we're not going to let him do another show. He's going back to school, public school, right off of the set. And I literally, one Monday morning, ended up back in junior high school, what they called it then, as a ninth grader, with my roots, my brown roots growing out from my blonde bleached hair from the TV series. And so they threw me right back into to the real world. And then after high school, I went to college doing anthropology, psychology, a couple of other. I got into science, you know. I got into electronics and was really getting into science and building stuff. And my father then passed away a year after I got out of high school, which did present some problems, obviously. And I was at a bit of a loose end. I would be doing little guest shots. I had an agent, and the agent would get me a little job on Peyton Place or Mr. Novak or one of these late 50s, early 60s shows. But that wasn't my plan. I was doing it kind of for summer money. And a friend of mine said, you know, we both like building stuff, which we did, both of us. And, you know, I had a workshop even then. And he said, let's be architects and start a little architectural firm. So I enrolled into LA Trade Tech. I just got an honorary award, not award, what do you call it? Honorary degree from them. I did about a year and a half, 2-3 semesters, but in the summers when I wasn't, going to school, I would do these little TV shows and guest shots, But I wasn't stupid. I mean, I knew the power of showbiz. I'd had a series. I knew how, valuable and important and life-changing it can be. And so one pilot season in 1965 comes along. And my agent, I had an agent, and I was going to school every day. And he would say, hey, I got an audition for you, 3 o'clock on Thursday, blah, blah, blah. Some I would go to, some I would say, I'm sorry, I got a test. And I didn't. So the Monkee audition comes along. I did, even at the time, sort of since this was kind of different, especially in the fact that you had to be able to sing and play and act to get into the audition or get through it. So clearly they must have had in mind at the time that they were going to kind of, create this sort of, real musical entity, I guess. My audition piece on guitar was Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry. I still do it to this day. And then there was acting and scene study and improv. And the improv I had the most trouble with. Mostly uncomfortable, and I am still to this day with improv because I was raised, to learn the script, read the lines, and show up and do the scene and go home. And so the audition process was quite extensive. But my agent calls and says, you got the pilot. And I was in school studying to be an architect, and I said, great. And I took off 10 days to do the pilot. And then I went back to school because I knew that 9 out of 10 pilots just don't sell. And I wasn't going to take a chance, so I went back to school studying to be an architect. And then when we got the order for the first season, the 26 episodes of the first season, I decided I better quit school.
Welcome back to the Bullseye Holiday Special. I'm Jesse Thorn. I'm here right now with Micky Dolenz. He's one of the singers and the drummer for the Monkees. The band just released a brand new holiday record. It's called Christmas Party. Let's hear another song from it. This one is called What Would Santa Do? I have a clip from the TV show The Monkees, and it's from an episode called The Monkees Watch Their Feet, in which you, Micky, are abducted by aliens. In a classic Monkee storyline.
Yeah.
So we're about to hear you. You are you've been beamed onto a flying saucer. You are then cloned by the blue-skinned captain and his assistant. Then your evil robot double is unleashed back into the world to spy on the other Monkees, Peter Tork and Mike Nesmith.
Right.
Let's take a listen.
Hey, Micky, isn't that a spaceship over there?
No, it's the powerfully persuasive argument of the space alien.
What does a spaceship look like? Well, I don't know. I never saw one before. Then how do you know it is a spaceship?
He's right, man. Probably some new drive-in.
The only way to recognize an alien is to take note of strange behavior. Just take some notes on this next scene.
Hello, Bunny. I'm here in enemy headquarters. They have harmonic destructors here, like we do on Zlavnik, when they're using the terrible and horrible sounds. They also have insufferable tortures here on Earth. Whenever a pussycat cries, they tear off its head.
Definitely not.
Then they holler in its ear.
Right.
And then they put the head back on the body. I don't know how it stays alive. And
Micky? Micky, who are you talking to just then?
no one.
Well, you're acting very strange, you know. I'm not acting strange. I'm acting perfectly normal. There's nothing strange about me. Don't tear off that cat's head again. I can't stand it.
There's a lot of nonsense for a television show in the mid-1960s.
Oh, boy, a lot. But, you know, interesting you should say that. If you look back, and I've studied it, I've done lectures now, people have asked me, you know, for years, you know, what was it? How was it? How did it happen? It wasn't that, if you look back, it really wasn't that, I don't know, what's the word? I guess surprising, because the producers had made some very clever early on decisions when they were doing their Bible, which is the essence of a show. For starters, and funnily enough, I was just listening to an interview you did with Eric Idle, who I have known for years, and he was talking about Monty Python's, and he mentioned how the humor was not topical. The Monkees' humor was not topical, nor was it satirical. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Monkees and Monty Python and I Love Lucy and other shows stand up for so long, because they're not topical. And that was a conscious decision that the producers made. We're not going to talk about anything in the news this week. We're not going to do anything too satirical. It was another friend of mine, a guy named John Lennon. Oh, did I drop that name?
I'll grab it for you.
I got it. Who said the Monkees were like the Marx Brothers. And if you look at the Monkees show, the project, the whole thing, as this sort of half-hour Marx Brothers musical movie on television, everything makes a whole lot more sense. If you think of an old Marx Brothers movie where everybody ran around and danced and sang and had a plot, and there was a bad guy and a good guy and people were doing silly stuff, and, you know, that scene you just played could have been right out of a Marx Brothers movie. We were screened Marx Brothers movies during the preparation process, for instance. So it was not coincidental. I mean, there was some thought put behind this, that the show would not be topical, it would not be satirical, because that would date it very quickly. And also, a very important point, I think, is that the Monkees were never successful. It was the struggle for success, because that I think is what endeared it to all those kids around the world, was that we represented all those kids in their garages, in their basements, in their kitchens, wherever in their garage, trying to be the Beatles. And that is essentially what the Monkee Show was about. This band that wanted to be the Beatles. And on the television show, we never made it. It was always the struggle for success that I think is, like I say, one of the things that endeared it to so many people.
Did you want to be lovable Marx Brothers-y goofballs, or did you want to be cool rock stars when the possibility that you actually maybe could be cool rock stars came up?
In my case, it was, I woke up one day and I fell asleep one night as a working actor, entertainer, singer, musician, because I had to do all that. And I woke up in the morning as a cool rock star. And I was like, whoa, when did that happen? It's kind of exemplified in a story I've told a bunch of times. During the show went on the air in September of 26. What century are we in here? In September of 66, and we'd been filming since June or July, and recording, of course, all the time, day and night. I was doing most of the lead singing, so I would go on the set from 7 in the morning to 7 at night, and then have dinner, and then go into the studio and record vocals, sometimes 2 or 3 a night, and because they needed so much material for the television show. And and then that Christmas, this time that year, 66, they gave us a hiatus. The show had been on the air since September. We'd heard that it was doing very well. We'd heard that Clarksville had gone to #1. But we're working 12, 14 hours a day. In those days, of course, without social media and all that other kind of stuff, I'd get in my car in the parking lot and drive home and never see anybody, never interact. The fans didn't know where we were or how to find us, if you just went home. And that Christmas, I was going to drive up to San Jose, where my parents and family lived at the time, with my Christmas presents and have about a week or 10 days, whatever it was, off and a little hiatus. So I get my little Christmas list together and I get in my car and I drive down to the local mall there in the Valley in Los Angeles, where I'd shopped every year for decades with my family. And I get out of my car with my little list and I walk through the big glass doors, and all of a sudden people come running at me screaming, and I thought it was a fire. And I'm holding open the door going, "Slow down, don't run, don't panic." I literally did think it was a fire, and they were running at me. And I had to leave. I was really pissed off. I had to go and give my Christmas list to my roadie and have him go do the shopping. Got in my car and had to go home. Well, that was the first inkling that I had of what was going on.
I mean, it sounds neat, but it also sounds hard.
Oh, it was a lot of work. Oh, boy. Each episode took 3 days, and then start the next one the very next day. And then we started rehearsing for the concert tour, because they obviously had in mind that if this thing happened, they wanted us to be able to play, or they would not have cast people that could. They wouldn't have bothered. They would have just cast actors and done it all, everything else, kind of old school. They clearly had in mind that they hoped that if the thing happened, if the show went, that we would go on the road and record. And perform. And sure enough, we did. And our first concert was in Hawaii, in Honolulu, at the HIC auditorium. I don't know how many thousands of people were there. And I think that their plan was, well, if we do it in Hawaii and it doesn't work, no one will know.
We'll have 3 weeks before news reaches the mainland.
That's right. But it did, and it was huge. Mike Nesmith, I think, put it very, very succinctly once. He said, at that point, Pinocchio became a real little boy.
Micky Dolenz, thanks so much for being on Bullseye. It was great to get to talk to you.
Well, I hope that was okay for you guys. Thank you.
When the snowman brings the snow, well, he just might like to know he's put a great big smile on somebody's face. If you jump into
Micky Dolenz. The Monkees' new holiday album is called Christmas Party. It's out now. Here's one more song from the record. It's called I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day.